Venezuela declares a state of emergency due to the coronavirus pandemic. 14 countries have confirmed coronavirus cases in Latin America. CARICOM calls to respect the electoral process in Guyana, while the final election results are yet to be announced. Hi, from the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba. This is From the South. I'm Cristina Escobar. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, declared on Thursday a permanent emergency on the South American country due to the novel coronavirus. Likewise, a presidential commission has been established to deal with the COVID-19 and all health protocols in coordination with the World Health Organization, although up to now, no cases have been confirmed in Venezuela. Maduro demanded Donald Trump's government to lift all economic sanctions against his country in order to be able to face properly this pandemic and access needed medical supplies. The president also announced the suspension of flights from Europe and Colombia for a month as a preventive measure to control the COVID-19 outbreak. Maduro stressed how the economic blockade against the Bolivarian nation increases the cost of testing material for COVID-19, as well as the prevention and attention strategies. He made a call to the Venezuelan people, to organizations and social movements to fight this global pandemic, while massive acts and gatherings have also been suspended.
And we are asking China, and we have requested officially and urgently that they send a group of experts that have been in the combat and control of this pandemic in China, so we can add all of the efforts we can and all of the knowledge. That is why we listen to the World Health Organization, and we're open to listen to all of the suggestions of all of the sectors, scientific of the country, and ask other countries to support our efforts. This is an effort on behalf of all of humanity. From Cuba, we have received 10,000 treatments that are of some of the most successful treatments for the recovery and to protect the life of the patients with coronavirus.
And following the recent crash in oil prices and global stock exchanges, the Venezuelan president noted that all efforts are being made to address the impact.
We have already spoken with our allies at the OPEC. I am in permanent communication with OPEC and our allies like Russia to have some initiatives in the upcoming days of dialogue, so we can get together with the OPEC countries and the non-OPEC countries and find solutions from the OPEC and OPEC Plus and for long-term and short-term conditions. It has been proven in the circumstances how important it is for health and the balance of the world finance to have agreements between Russia and other producers of oil.
Guyana confirmed its first imported case of COVID-19 in Georgetown. The patient was identified as a 50-year-old Guyanese female who traveled from the United States. Unfortunately, she died at the hospital.
The Ministry of Public Health has designated 3 quarantine facilities. Others will be identified. The ministry also has developed the local capacity to test for COVID-19, thanks to training provided by the Pan American Health Organization. It is on that capacity that we relied for this test result.
Likewise, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has also recorded its first case of the coronavirus. The patient is a woman returning home from the United Kingdom. This becomes the third CARICOM nation to report a coronavirus case. Martinique has 4, Jamaica 2, the Dominican Republic 5, and St. Bart and St. Martin with 3. In Bolivia, the presidential candidate of the Movement for Socialism, Luis Arce, announced a temporary suspension of campaign rallies towards the May 3rd elections due to the novel coronavirus outbreak.
Dear people of Bolivia, in the face of the emergency declared by the WHO due to the coronavirus and with the purpose of protecting the life of all Bolivians, the candidates of the mosque we have decided to suspend temporarily the massive festivals during the campaign, as well as the physical propaganda material that represents a risk of contagious. Our campaign should continue preserving the health of the population according to the WHO recommendations that prohibit mass concentrations, whether political, religious, sports, or cultural, as more we are always in favor of life above any interest.
Meanwhile, in Cuba, 3 people have tested positive for the virus. 4 Italian tourists entered the island and 3 of them were confirmed as having tested positive on Wednesday, having shown respiratory symptoms. They are all isolated in the Pedro Curie Institute of Tropical Medicine in Havana. According to the Cuban health minister, 7 people who had contact with the Italian tourists in the city of Trinidad are being tested and monitored, although none has shown any symptoms. Global markets took another hammering on Thursday as alarm over the coronavirus intensified. Wall Street reported its second 15-minute stop in the last 2 days. New York market rules include 3 automatic circuit breakers that hold trading. A 7% decrease holds trading for 15 minutes. Another 15-minute pause happens and the market falls 13%, while the trading will be halted for the rest of the day and the market drops by 20%. On Thursday, Wall Street saw a drastic fall in the main global markets after the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic, and also after the further suspension of flights from Europe to the US, as announced by Washington in an effort to stop the spread of the virus. And as we were saying, the U.S. president announced the decision to impose a unilateral travel ban on the many European countries, all of them from the Schengen area, due to the novel coronavirus.
Consulting with our top government health professionals, I have decided to take several strong but necessary actions to protect the health and well-being of all Americans. To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days. The new rules will go into effect Friday at midnight.
Trump said all European travel ban would be cut off, but Homeland Security officials later clarified that the new restrictions would apply only to most foreign nationals who have been in Europe's passport-free travel zone at any point in the previous 14 days prior to their arrival to the United States. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Council President Charles Michel said in a statement that the EU condemned the U.S. decision to improve a travel ban as it was taken unilaterally and without consultation. With over 127,000 confirmed cases worldwide, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to spread across the globe. Mainland China reported 15 new infections, 8 of which are in Hubei, while it has stabilized the outbreak with strict sanitary measures. The death toll in Italy has jumped in the last 24 hours to 1,016, according to the Civil Protection Agency. Iran reported 75 new deaths from the COVID-19 since Wednesday, bringing the death toll to 429 in the worst-hit country in the Middle East. South Korea has since reported 67 deaths out of nearly 8,000 confirmed cases after testing more than 200,000 people. Norway recorded its first death from the coronavirus, Prime Minister Erna Solberg announced on Thursday. Meanwhile, Turkish schools will be closed for 1 week and universities for 3 weeks from March 16th, and sports events will be held without spectators until end April, stepping up its response to coronavirus after its first reported case. Coming up, CARICOM representatives call for respect of the electoral process in Guyana. Stay with us for more. Welcome back. Venezuelan Interior Minister Néstor Reverol held a press conference to offer details of the investigation into a fire in one of the main warehouses of Venezuela's National Electoral Council, revealing that it was found to have been intentionally started. Reverol said that a multidisciplinary team would be appointed, headed by the Scientific and Criminal Investigations Body, to investigate what has been deemed as a terrorist attack. The fire on Saturday tore through warehouses storing tens of thousands of electronic voting machines, hundreds of civil registry, as well as biometric fingerprints identification systems used in Venezuelan elections.
It was carried out intentionally against an area of more than 6,000 meters, which caused the total destruction of blocks of over 1,400 square meters. And with that, the destruction of 49,000 voting machines and different identification systems, as well as other components, given that this was a technological park. In the investigation, they located 3 points of ignition of the fire. They were located in the perimeter of the storage warehouse, which were set at distinct points around the warehouse and were initiated with the use of flammable accelerants. That is, it was sprayed with ignitable fuel. Additionally, 2 receptacles were located with gas residue.
Despite Guyana's Chief Justice Roxanne George ruling on Wednesday that the vote counting process in order to announce the results of the general election should be resumed on Thursday at 11 a.m., the verification of votes was once again discontinued. Chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission, Justice Claudette Sin, suspended the tabulation of votes for District 4 until she receives the written ruling from the court. This comes less than a day after Chief Justice Roxanne George ruled that the declaration of results by the returning officer, Clermont Mignon, for District 4 was null and void. The Chief Justice also ruled that the Guyana Elections Commission can only make a final declaration of the election results upon the completion of the vote counting process by the returning officer. The case was brought before the court by the opposition People's Progressive Party Civic. Region 4 is pivotal to the final general election results as the biggest of the country. We stay on topic because Caribbean Community Chair Mia Mottley led a delegation comprising of regional leaders on a 2-day visit to Guyana. At a press conference on Thursday, Mottley stressed that Chief Justice Roxanne George was clear in her ruling that she expects the returning officer to either start anew or complete the process with respect to the statements of Paul for Region 4.
Justice of Guyana ruled yesterday, and her ruling was absolutely clear that she expects the returning officer to either start anew or complete the process with respect to the SOPs. Any attempt to be able to stall the process or any attempt to be able to obfuscate the process is one that runs against the spirit of the Chief Justice's judgment. And it is against this background that we pray that even though a statute puts power in the hands of a returning officer, that returning officer will understand that he holds in his hands the future and stability of Guyana as we go forward.
Indigenous Peruvians from the Amazon region denounced on Wednesday the Plus Petrol Oil Company for environmental damages and tax evasion. A delegation of 4 local communities has filed a complaint with The Hague against a multinational company which was founded in Argentina but is now based in the Netherlands via a letterbox office with 1 employee. Indigenous communities whose homes have been contaminated by decades of oil extraction in the Amazon are appealing to Dutch authorities to hold the company accountable. As they say, it has caused devastating pollution in the rainforest while using legal loopholes to avoid paying taxes to the Peruvian state. The complaint alleged that Plus Petrol violate the global trade body's guidelines on human rights, the environment, transparency, and the fair payment of tax. Students in Chile faced repression by riot police in Santiago on the 2nd anniversary of the inauguration of President Sebastián Piñera. The day also marked the 30th anniversary of the return to democracy in Chile following the Augusto Pinochet dictatorship. Demonstrations took place in front of the National Institute and near the presidential palace. Most of the public transportation in central Santiago was suspended due to the protests. On Thursday morning, family members of hundreds of young people detained during the protests gathered in the surroundings of Congress to demand their release. Since October 2019, the Chilean people have continued to take to the streets to reject Piñera's administration and its violation of human rights. This Thursday, Uruguay saw the first strike action by teachers against the new president, Luis Lacalle Pou. More details in the following report by our correspondent, Mateo Grille.
The
24-hour strike led by the secondary school teachers is still ongoing in Montevideo, the capital of Uruguay. Teachers are denouncing the urgent consideration of a law that the Luis Lacalle Pou's government has proposed. The adoption of a series of bills sent by the President to the Legislative will determine in good part what the government will be able to do in the next 5 years. The secondary school teachers reject the education chapter included in this urgent bill, as they believe it would encourage privatization in Uruguay's education in addition to worsen conditions of those working in the public education sector. The 24-hour strike only affects Montevideo, where one of Uruguay's most iconic high schools, Vázquez Acevedo, has been occupied, and teachers are still meeting to plan the way forward. So it's a 24-hour strike here in Montevideo, while there are other partial closures and other agitation and propaganda actions in other parts of the country, involving talks with neighbors, student parents, and even students themselves regarding the situations that have prompted this nationwide mobilization. In this assembly that is still ongoing, participants are debating how to proceed with this conflict, whether there would be more strikes in the coming days or propose some sort of negotiation with the government, as the secondary school teachers have voiced their rejection to the education chapter in this urgent bill. At this point, we will see if negotiations will be forthcoming when the bill enters the legislative.
Todavía no entró al Poder Legislativo. En ese momento, cuando ingrese al Legislativo, se verá.
The government, however, has not shown any willingness to open negotiations for any of the chapters of the proposed draft. So tonight, we will be able to know what the secondary school teachers have resolved and how this conflict will evolve.
We're taking one last break, but stay with us. Welcome back. The U.S. House of Representatives approved a resolution on Wednesday that would prevent President Donald Trump from launching a military attack against Iran without explicit congressional authorization. Previously, the Senate passed the same decision on February 13th. Congress should vote on articles of war before any further hostilities with Iran, explained Democratic Representative James McGovern in a House debate. With this approval, the U.S. Congress is reacting to the president's decision of killing the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani amid escalating tensions with Tehran. The resolution will be sent now to the White House, where a veto is expected after Trump warned it would undermine the ability of the United States to protect American citizens. In order to override the expected veto, it's needed a two-thirds vote in both the House and the Senate. But Wednesday's vote still marked a rare bipartisan effort to curb Trump's war powers and underscored lawmakers' lingering concerns that U.S. tensions with Iran could escalate into a full-fledged war. Warplanes struck an area in eastern Syria near the Iraqi border, killing at least 18 members of the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Units, hours after a rocket attack against U.S.-led coalition forces in Iraq reportedly left 3 members of the coalition dead. Unidentified jets hit targets in the southeast of the Syrian town of Abu Kamal, along the border with Iraq in the early hours of Thursday morning. Reports said at least 18 Iraqi Popular Forces were killed in the border area in eastern Syria. Meanwhile, multiple reports by local media said that an area in Iraq's Anbar province on the border with Syria also came under attack by unidentified warplanes. The attack came shortly after the U.S.-led coalition confirmed 3 of its personnel, 2 American soldiers and 1 British, had been killed in a rocket attack on the Taji military camp in Iraq. Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry continues his diplomatic tour over Arab countries in order to gain support for the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam project, an under-construction gravity dam on the Blue Nile River in Ethiopia that should also feed the largest hydroelectric power plant in Africa once it's completed. The project should take from 5 to 15 years to fill with water. Cairo is concerned with the speed of the water consumption because it might impact Egypt's water supply. Days after obtaining an Arab ministerial decision to support its water rights in the face of Addis Ababa, Egyptian Foreign Minister Shoukry started an Arab tour that includes 7 countries aimed at forming an Arab safety net to support the upcoming Egyptian steps. On Sunday, Jordan's King Abdullah received Shoukry. Afterwards, he will visit Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. Observers expect the tour to mobilize Arab support behind the Egyptian stance towards the dam will work. Ethiopia sees the dam as essential for its electoral grid and national development, but Egypt sees the construction as an existential threat because it depends on the Nile for 90% of its drinking water. And speaking of water, thunder showers and floods hit Egypt's capital, Cairo, and several provinces on Thursday, leaving at least 4 people dead and 5 wounded, according to government officials. A child and 5 people were wounded when floods demolished their houses in rural area in the southern province of Kenya, where lightning also ignited several fires. Pictures and footage of flooded roads, as well as damaged bus shelters and broken windows, were circulated on social media. Authorities closed down the Luxor International Airport, a key hub for tourists, as well as the Mediterranean port of Alexandria and the Red Sea port of Sharm el-Sheikh. Guinea has postponed for a second time a referendum proposing a constitutional change in the country. President Alpha Condé initially delayed the vote last month, citing concerns over the fairness of the process. Voters were also due to elect members of parliament on Sunday, March 15th. However, the Electoral Commission said there had to be another delay as it was awaiting a report from the Economic Community of West African States. If the constitutional changes are passed, President Condé would be free to seek a 3rd term in office. The changes do not propose a removal of term limits, but would extend presidential mandates to 6 years from 5. Guinea's current constitution was written during the country's military rule between 2008 and 2010. A U.S. airstrike aimed at Somali Islamist militant killed 6 civilians instead a lawmaker and relative of one victim denounced on Wednesday. Mahad Dor, a lawmaker from Somalia's southwest, gave Reuters the names and clans of the 6 civilians he said were killed. Dor claimed a drone killed the victims in a minibus yesterday, including a 13-year-old boy. Washington claimed that the attack had killed 5 terrorists. However, the member of the parliament said the Americans are lying because 6 of them were civilians and they were buried near the area where they were bombed by the drone because they could not be carried as they were burned into pieces. U.S. Africa Command said it will review any information it has about the incident. And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.